Gopastami Mahamudra ki Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Ajanulambita Bhujo Kanakavadatu Sankirtanai Kapitaro Kamalaya Tattro Vishwambaro Dvijavaro Yugadharma Karo Vande Jagat Priyakaro Karunavatararo Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Saharito Godai Pushpavanto Chitro Sando Tamonuno Vandeham Sri Ramakrishna Abhaya Charano Sako Sukado Paramanando Sundaro Subala Priyo He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisa Gopika Kanda Radha Namaste Tapte Kanchan Gaurangi Radhe Vrindaveshwari Vishwavan Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Ji Gauri Vaishnava Guru Parampara ki Jai Ram Govinda ki Jai Old Bhaktivinoda Old Premanande Evening. Very nice to be here with all of you. A page out of the appendix to the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So, we gather on the auspicious occasion of Gopastami. And we'll speak a little bit about the boyhood of Krishna, which marked by the Gopastami rite passage. And I want to do so first briefly by addressing the topic from the point of view of Gaur Leela. And then we'll proceed to discuss the festivities of Gopastami itself in Krishna Leela. And I've written in Circle of Friends, my most recent book, I wrote a fairly extensive chapter on this. And so I'm going to draw from that a little bit, and I may stop and read a couple sections here and there. Okay, so that's what you can look forward to or expect. So, with regard to Gaur Leela, Sriman Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki Jai, Sri Nityananda Ram ki Jai. The 15th chapter of the Adi Leela introduces the Poganda Leela of Krishna. Poganda means boyhood. So from Kumar, from childhood to boyhood, and from boyhood to adolescence. These are the three ages, if you will, of Krishna. He never ages beyond Kishore. His Kishore Leela, however, extends into his Mathura and Dwarka Leelas, unlike his Kumar and his Poganda Leelas, which are obviously never experienced outside of Vrindavan. And interestingly, the Poganda Leela is the beginning, which is really the celebration of Gopastami. It's there's a confluence, I want to say, because the Kumar Leela is just ending, the boyhood is just starting, and there's a touch of adolescence also at the dawn of Poganda within Krishna, who, as I said before, is an early bloomer. So it's a very special period, if you will. And interestingly enough, all three of these divisions, the last part of his Kumar Lila, where Krishna is a calf herder, the entirety of the Poganda Lila, and the entirety of the Kishore Lila within Braj Mandal, are udipanas or catalysts for Sakyabhav, which is central to the Gopastami festival. And your attire this evening, many of you, is a testament to that, it would seem. So, the 15th chapter, again, of the Adi Lila, it introduces the Kishore pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And they are largely his schooling. And was in the school. And at this point, in his Poganda Lila, he comes under the tutelage of, what is his name? Ganga. Gangadas Pandit, yes. He had earlier teachers. But his student life becomes very intense, and he comes under Gangadas Pandit, and also he meets his eternal consort, Lakshmi Priya. So you can see there's a touch of Kishore there, also, or adolescence, in his Poganda Lila as well. And the Chaitanya Bhagavata goes on in a number of chapters to talk about any number of pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu during this period. But there's a section in the Chaitanya Bhagavata that I have rendered in Circle of Friends that I would like to read you, because it is something that we, if we know how to read such texts, it's something that will stand out to us. It's an instance in which the author is revealing something that of his own heart. Huyam akyati prichati. You share the heart. It means it's a symptom of love within Vaishnavism, Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And of course, it means share one's realizations about one's practice and progress and so on and so forth. And when really elevated devotees give us a glimpse into their heart, obviously it's a very special blessing, right? So here we hear from Vrindavan Das Thakur, who's marveling, if you will, about the Poganda Lila of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He says, surrounded by his sishyas. Sishyas means disciples. These means student disciples, because although he was a student, he also became a teacher at the same time amongst the other students. Such was his expertise in the classroom under the tutelage of Gangadas Pandit. Surrounded by his sishyas, Vrindavan Das Thakur writes, Sri Sachinandan sat on the bank of the Ganga. If I had a million mouths, I could not do justice to this beautiful sight. Nothing in the three worlds compares. Not the moon, surrounded by stars, for the moon bears spots and waxes and wanes, while Prabhu, Gaur, is always full and spotless. Nor could I compare this scene to Brihaspati, surrounded by his students, who is partial to the gods. Brihaspati is the guru amongst the gods, so he's partial to them as opposed to the demons. Nor to Brihaspati, who is partial to the gods, for Prabhu is partial to everyone. Nor to Cupid, who enters one's heart, causing agitation, for when Gaur Prabhu enters one's heart, samsara is destroyed and one's heart becomes happy. Thus, all these comparisons are faulty. What is the scene again? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sitting on the bank of the Ganges, with his students. He says, but there is one fitting comparison that comes to mind. Just as Sri Nanda Kumar sat amid the Gopas on the bank of the Jamuna in his cowherd Leela, that same Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Sri Krishna Chandra, in the form of a Brahman, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, enjoyed sitting amidst those same cowherd boys on the bank of the Ganga. Who can calculate the fortune of the lucky souls who saw this bliss? Merely seeing one who has witnessed this bliss, one is freed from samsara. Because of my impiety, I did not take birth at that time, and hence I was cheated out of the joy of this darshan. O Sri Gaurachandra, show me your mercy that I may remember this Leela, birth after birth, wherever you and Nityananda perform pastimes with your cowherd companions. May I be present there in your service. Sri Vrindavan Das Thakur, Jai. Here we have a prominent, he is the last disciple of Nityananda Prabhu, formal disciple, of which there were many. Nityananda Prabhu is characterized by a very wide campaign and distribution of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission. He was commissioned, he did so at the behest of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All the members of the Panchatattva are characterized by something wonderful. If we analyze it, we could say this one is the best, this one is the best, that one is the best, and so forth. It's with regard to Nityananda Prabhu, it's the wide circulation of the campaign, anyone and everyone, and so forth. And he did so with the help of his assistants, who he uncovered one by one in Gaur Leela, who were intimate cowherd friends of his and Krishna's in the Braj Leela. So Vrindavan Das, as I say, he was the last of them, and here we find his Sakyabhav beautifully expressed. This is a wonderful, wonderful. Should underline this section of Chaitanya Bhagavad. So that said, we turn to Gopastami in Krishna Leela. And we hear about this is very first, the onset of the 15th chapter of the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. In the very first verse there, Babhu Batus to Pashupala Sammuto. It says here, and then the two of them began to take care of the cows. So this is the graduation then from, as I said earlier, from calf herding, which is the play of Ram and Krishna and their friends, the last part of their childhood Leela. And that Leela, they can't go too far from home. In distance, close enough that they can hear the call for lunch, they have to come back, and so on and so forth. So with the herding of the cows, then they're going to be out all day and into the late afternoon and a distance through all the forests of Braj and so forth. Very exciting moment for them. And here, by mention of this in the first verse, then we can understand, oh, this here chapter is speaking about obviously the rite of passage and the celebration that involves is known as Gopastami. When Krishna becomes a cowherder, there has to be a festival and a ritual, and a lot of people have to get on board in order for this to happen, especially the elders, and especially those who are very close to him, like his parents, and first and foremost of all of them, his mother and her resistance, if you will, and unwillingness to allow her son to wander in the forests all day long, right, with big cows and unchaperoned and so on and so forth. So we come into this phase of Krishna's cowherd Leela and full face, if you will, of Sakyabhava. And as we do, we find there's this tension between Sakya and Vatsalya, back and forth between cowherds Krishna wanting to go out, and Mother Yasoda wanted to keep him within the compound, within the estate of Nanda Maharaj. And it said in that verse also, it said that Padai Brindhavanam Punyam Ativa Chakratu. So it's describing a little bit about this, and here the Poganda Leela is differentiated from the Kumar Leela by a physical feature of Krishna, which is that it is said here, taking care of the cows, then he will depart into the forest and leave his lotus footprints throughout the forest floor. The implication is that at this point in his development, if you will, within the Prakat Leela, in the Prakat Leela there appears to be time, right? And eternal Leelas of Krishna are manifesting gradually as his age, corresponding with the development of his age. So he has very special footprints, as most of you know, markings on the bottom of his foot. We all have markings on our palm of our hands and on the soles of our feet. These are quite extraordinary. And in his early, in his childhood, they're not, the lines aren't fully developed, right? Neither does he have the weight, sufficient weight, to make an impression on the ground. This is the implication. So we can understand he's coming into boyhood. Bhagavatam is suggesting in this way. And of course, these footprints of Krishna, they are they are a particular quality of Krishna. Krishna has many qualities. Rupa Goswami has cited more than 64. And these qualities of Krishna will be of interest to different devotees relative to their own bhava. So in Vatsalya Bhav, certain qualities of Krishna will be more pertinent and more conducive to their bhav, and udipana, an excitement, a catalyst for their parental love, and similarly in Sakya Bhav and Madhurya Bhav and so on and so forth. So this one, the markings on Krishna's feet are particularly a particular quality of Krishna that is very it pertains to Sakya-rasa. After all, they're in the forest and they will massage his feet. They're very acquainted with his footprints and so forth. And the forest has a way, despite the change of weather and so forth during the different seasons, of preserving them in the forest. Except for some of them in his adolescent Leela, where he's been distracted and is moving towards meeting with Chandravali. Those will be hidden. But otherwise, they're a prominent feature, if you will, footprints of Krishna, prominent feature for his Gopa friends. So they're mentioned here. And this way we can understand from the first verse, Krishna is entering into Poganda, and the implication is there must be, this is now the Gopastami is performed. But it's not mentioned in the Bhagavatam itself, but it's indicated, as I've mentioned, through the text here. And then if we go to perhaps the Padma Purana or Vishnu Purana, then it'll be directly mentioned, and the time will be mentioned. So on the 8th day of the waxing moon of the month of Kartik, this is called Gopastami. Now, how did we arrive at this astrological calculation, right? That's a good question, and it comes up in the context of will come up in the context of our describing the festival itself and the lead up to it and so forth. So, of course, as I mentioned, there's some tension between Vatsalya, parental love, and friendly love. At this point, Krishna's center of the center of the gravity, if you will, of his love is shifting from his parents to his friends. And there are things that he can share with his friends that they can't share with their parents. right? So this is a specialty of Sakya-rasa. There's a hierarchy of rasas in one sense, in that some include more elements than others to them. Rupa Goswami gives a hierarchy from Shanta to Dasya to Sakya to Vatsalya and Madhurya, and most of you are probably familiar with that. However, Jiva Goswami gives a list in another way. He says from Shanta to Dasya to Vatsalya to Sakya, and then Madhurya. So he places Sakya above Vatsalya. So he seems to contradict Rupa Goswami. He does that in the Bhakti Sandarbha, Priti Sandarbha, excuse me. So he seems to contradict Rupa Goswami. We should take a minute to explore that and see if how we can do that. And of course, the answer is he doesn't really contradict Rupa Goswami, because at the end of Rupa Goswami's chapter on Sakyabhav, entitled Preyo Bhakti Rasa, Preyo means friendly love, Rupa Goswami cites the fact that amongst the Dasya, Sakya, and Vatsalya, which are called Sambandha Rupa Bhakti, whereas romantic love of Krishna is called Kama Rupa Bhakti. To follow either of these is to be on the path of Sambandhanuga or Kamanuga, which are two divisions of Raganuga Bhakti. Raganuga Bhakti, Anuga means to follow the rag that's embodied in the associates of Krishna in Braj, who are the personification of the love that he is the object of. And so the two are once simultaneously one and different. Right? This is Radha and Krishna are one and different. So Nanda and Yashoda and Krishna and Subhasak and Krishna, the friends, the parents, the lovers, and so forth, servants, they all embody the love that he is the object of. And you need the two. Just like you need it if you have a teacher. You can't have a teacher without a student, right? Right? You can't have a guru without disciples. So we can't have love without. So rasa is these two, and it means these two becoming one. Because in love, there can be no other. If you say I love you, then you don't know anything about love, because there are not two in love. There's one. But of course, it's a dynamic oneness, where you and I, Ramdas, become one. Become we. You and I become we. I can say, Ramdas and I, we are one. We're on the same page, same paragraph, same sentence, same parenthetic phrase. Right? He's still there, I'm still here, but we're one. So this is the dynamic unity, if you will, of Bhakti Rasa, two becoming one. And it beautifully comes out, of course, in the person of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Rasaraj Mahabhav Duyek Rupa. Rasaraj is Krishna, the king of rasa. Radharani is Mahabhav, very personification of the highest love, the object of love and the love. And these two, Dui, Ekru, becoming one. That's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Why are they becoming one? Well, they try to become one. If I love you, I try to know everything about you, right? And I try to make your desires my desires. Of course, the problem is you're trying to make my desires your desires. So the problem is that the more Krishna and Radha come together in love, Radha starts feeling like Krishna, Krishna starts feeling like Radha, and again, they're separated. So it's a problem. But the problem is, this is resolved in the person of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he is the full unity, if you will, the full face of union. Mahabhav, Maranaki Mahabhav. So different types of devotees, and their love for Krishna is stimulated by different features, Krishna, different qualities, and so on and so forth. And with regard to the Vatsalya and Sakya, here we find some tension, and these two are not compatible. So Vatsalya Ras is not compatible with Sakya Ras. Vatsalya Ras is not compatible with Madhurya Ras. Is it a bad thing? No. What does it mean? It means that if I have fraternal love, as I was saying, close friendship with another as a young boy, in this instance, or boys together, and then suddenly our parents come into the room. Well, we have to, our love and its expression, the anubhavs of that, will have to contract in the presence of elders who will want to chaperone and oversee our behavior. So Sankyaras will contract under the influence of Madhurya Rasa. Similarly, young adolescent romantic love will also contract under the influence of Vatsalya Bhav. So Vatsalya is the enemy of Madhurya. There's the enemy, Rupa Goswami uses this word, the enemy of Sakya. But of course, without that enemy, there could be no Parakiya. So, and if there's no Parakiya, there's no cow herding, there's no sporting in the forests. Because Krishna goes to the forest, we're going to hear here, on the plea of being dharmic and living up to the, his caste, and taking the reins of his father's trade, if you will, agriculture, animal husbandry, on his own shoulders. After all, his father's rather old. That's a whole other story. His parents tried for many years to have a son, Nanda and Yashoda, but every time they thought to come together and beget a child, Nanda Maharaj thought, I want a child who's more beautiful than Narayan. And then he starts thinking all the qualities of Narayan, it has better than. They thought, I'm crazy. And he would lose his impetus. And after a while, they shared notes with Yashoda. And says, same thing happens to me. But we have to have a son because we have a whole kingdom here of cowards that need to be, that needs to be a successor, right? So they made a vow to worship Narayan for 1 year, very strictly, controlling their senses and so forth. And Narayan appeared to him in a dream, blessed him, and so on. They would appear. The son, you can decide when he's born, whether he's better than me or not, something more beautiful and so forth. So, but they were old is the point, elderly. And so this tension anyway between Sakyaras and Madhurya Rasa, if it weren't for the Vatsalya Rasa at the same time, there'd be no Parakiya. So there'd be no cow herding. And what do I mean by that? That Krishna goes out, as we'll see in this Leela, to herd cows on the plea of taking over the family business, if you will, taking from the elderly Nanda Maharaj. He shouldn't have to. He should have a good son who's capable of taking the lead, so the father can comfortably retire and so forth. Right? This is part, of course, his argument, and it's a good one. In fact, the elders, Nanda's brothers, Krishna's uncles, they turned Nanda's head from being unable to think or entertain the idea that Krishna would go out into the forest all day long herding cows. I mean, one thing is what would happen in the forest and big cows and so on and so forth. The other thing was just his separation, his feeling of separation. Just the thought of that was so overwhelming to him. But at this time, suddenly Krishna began to spend more time with his uncles than with his father. I remember, I'll just make a personal point to you. I remember the day that I transitioned from Kumar to Poganda in my life. It's one of the, certain things stick out in your life. It's a moment that's always retained a memory for. And on that day, I didn't allow my mother to do things that she would ordinarily do, helping me get dressed and so forth. And my father chuckled and he thought, a change has come here. As he said, coming into boyhood, something like that. So this is happening to Krishna. And and so he has his focus center of his love is shifting from his parents to his friends, and his uncles are parents, but they're also friends of sorts comparatively. Hmm? They don't have the opportunity to speak with Krishna as often and have his association, such intimacy as his father does. So they're really relishing this opportunity. And of course, the discussion amongst them is Krishna's revealing to them he wants to be a cowherd and he wants to hear from them what it's like to herd cows, what it's like to be a full-grown cowherd, what should I expect, and so forth. So these uncles are very relishing the opportunity to speak closely with Krishna. And whenever Nanda Maharaj comes, everybody becomes quiet. Mm. So he's suspicious. What's going on here? What's going on here? And then the younger of them, the brothers, Krishna's uncles, pulls him aside and tells him, here's the thing. And this is already like, they know it. Nanda knows it. Yashoda knows it, but they're in denial at this point. They're in denial. It's not really happening. There's rumors about this talk. After all the other cowherd boys are having the same interaction with their parents and so forth, and they're less inclined to keep them from going into the forest because, well, Krishna's the center of the parents' life and the boy's life and so forth, and so on. So it might even hear so-and-so got permission to, now herd the cows and so forth. And so there should be a festival. It's rumoring. But they're in denial of this. And after all that said, the other boys, yes, they're the same as Krishna, they're equals, but Nanda is the king of all the cowherds. So his boys should have some special status, some special status. And Nanda feels I don't really need him to do that. I could get other people, other boys to do that, other assistants and servants and so forth. He has a special status. Of course, this idea that Krishna has a special status because he's the son of the king is not something that goes over at all with his friends. There's a story in this regard. I'll tell it to you briefly. A little bit of an aside, but in their Poganda Leela, of course, they're always creating new and new sports, right? Always coming up with a game, right? So they came up with a game one day. And the game was that you collect fruits, round fruits, and as many as you can, and you throw them at other cowherds. Whoever gets hit by a fruit is out. The last one standing is the winner. So they're throwing fruits at one another, and Balaram is the best with any kind of ball. He is the best. But Krishna's very dexterous, and so he was escaping and so forth as well. And so a couple of boys, about 4 of them, made a plan. Let's make a pact. We'll get rid of Krishna out of the picture, and then we'll deal with one another. So they went and hid behind a big banyan tree. And then other boys who were in cahoots with them all ganged up on Krishna and chased him towards the tree. And what happened when they got to the tree? Then the boys jumped out and easily, hit him with balls and so forth. And so Krishna complained that they cheated. And Brahm was asked to be the referee, and he said, "Well, I don't think so. That's not in the rule book. That they're not breaking any rules here, and so forth." And then Krishna said, "Yes, but we may be equals, but I'm the son of the king." And that just went over like a lead balloon. Ooh, boo! So they tied him up to the banyan tree. Who do you think you are? This is Sakirasa. They tied him up to the tree, and he wept, and he wept, and he wept. Now the question is, why was he weeping? And the answer is because on that day he knew I have attained Sakirasa. True equality. It's very beautiful. So now he's associating with the elders, the uncles, and so forth. And the uncles are starting to now bring Nanda Maharaj on board. And so they turn his head. His brothers have turned his head a little bit to think, actually, it's a good thing. It would be good for a father to see the son take over the business, if you will, and so forth. I'll be proud of him. And so he's now starting to be converted, if you will. They're working through Nanda Maharaj first. you get the Yashoda last because she is a real, real barrier in this, right? And and so someone comes to the house, a friend, associate, and she asks, "What's this rumor about the boys, going cow herding and so forth?" And her friend tries to talk to her about it, but she doesn't have an ear for that at all. And um, and so, of course, the boys arrive in the morning, and they've all got permission. Shridam, the son of Kirtida and Vrishabhanu Maharaj, the other side of the kingdom, if you will, of the cowherds, he's got permission, and he's from a wealthy family, also like Krishna. And there they are at the door and looking in, and there's Krishna and Mother Yasoda, and they're kind of like, "You coming?" Or what? Uh, they had already planned this out, the night before, and they had planned to proceed with some caution, and let's figure out how we can turn Mother Yasoda's head and heart and get her blessing, because we can't go without that, obviously. So, but when Krishna saw his friends at the door, he lost sight of the plan that they had, with their seeing their enthusiasm for herding and so forth. And of course, I'm making the point here. I should have, before we go on, I said, without this opposition from Vatsalya, there'd be no Parakia. Without Parakia, there'd be no cow herding. There'd be no frolicking in the forest and so forth, because Krishna is going to go on the plea of cow herding. That's an excuse, when actually it's there. He's really there to play with his friends. But we have to add to that further that he's really there to meet with Radharani in broad daylight somehow, with the help of some of his friends and her Sakis. So without that Parakia, all the other rasas wouldn't take place. Wouldn't make sense. So all of these are beautiful sentiments. They all work together. There's no hierarchy in the spiritual world, only here in the material world, to give us enthusiasm to pursue the bhava that manifests in our heart, that we have some attraction to at late stages of sadhana, like ruchi, but we understand theoretically at nishta, analyzing our guru, our line, and so on and so forth. We can come to some conclusions. It's confirmed in ruchi, which is of taste, and the taste is particular. Therefore, the object of love that comes into view in asakti is particular. Ainanda tanuja kinkaram patitam mam. What did he say? Ainanda tanuja kinkaram. Is that the verse? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, I want to be born in the house of Nanda. I want to live in the house of Nanda Maharaj. Ainanda tanuja kinkaram. I want to become a kinkari, a maidservant in the house of Nanda Maharaj. What does that mean? When a girl marries in the Braj, then she's lived in the house of her husband's parents, right? And becomes a maidservant there of sorts, right? Mahaprabhu was praying like this. So it means that his ruchi, which was Nadanam Najanam Nasundrim Kabitam Ba Jagadish Kamare, Kamaye, Mama Janmani Janmanishware. I don't want anything. Nadanam Najanam Nasundrim Kabitam either. Neither the arts and the poetry, and I only want bhakti. His taste is only for bhakti. Life, and I don't care about birth and death. It doesn't matter to me as long as I can have bhakti. This is ruchi. The bhakti, the taste is specific. Why? Because the object of love, in ruchi we are attached to bhakti, and in asakti, the last stage of sadhana, we're attached to the object of bhakti. But a particular object comes into view. If it's Sakyarasa, Krishna is going to appear in a certain way. If it's Madhurya Rasa, it's going to appear in a certain way. Like I said, certain qualities different qualities of Krishna will be relevant to different rasas. You follow? So, at any rate, Krishna, without the Parakiya, no cow herding, no Sakyarasa. So all these work together, right? And each of us has a destiny, right? We all have a swabhav, Sanatana Goswami says. And that swabhav of each individual corresponds with the will of Krishna that's more deeper than millions of oceans, how he wants to accept service. And so the Guru comes to us, and so forth and so on, right? So in this world, then, there's a kind of hierarchy, because we will all feel that ours is the best, and we'll be able to reason about it, so forth and so forth. And we could say, well, objectively, you could say that, but but in the spiritual world itself, proper, then there's no hierarchy. Everybody is fully their vessel is filled, if you will. They are a certain vessel of love in waiting. They are a particular Haridas, Krishna Das, in waiting to be realized through good association and practice. And so they're completely fulfilled, right? And all these rasas and praj, they're complementing one another, even those that are in opposition to one another, as we're explaining. So here, anyway, to proceed with the narrative, we took a little detour there and talked about Krishna attaining Sakyabhav, weeping. I'm accepted, really. Just see. Right? So this is a Poganda Leela. This is an extension of the day of Gopastami, if you will. So the boys are at the door. There's a plan that was worked out the night before, how we're going to work with Yasoda, when that moment comes, and try to get her on our side and so forth. But Krishna loses it. He sees the boys and their eagerness and their enthusiasm. And he just turns to Mother Yasoda, says, I'm going to be a cowherd boy today. I'm going today. And her heart is like just about stopped, right? So now she has to come back from that heart palpitation and start to reason with her son. And of course, she says some nice things. Let's see what she says. Right. She reasons with Krishna that, well, one thing is that it may be true that it's your dharma to herd cows, but you're the son of the king, so you don't have to like the other boys do. Krishna will say, Sridham is also from a wealthy family. They have millions of cows too, but his parents gave him permission. So this way the argument goes back and forth. Krishna starts to make some progress and so forth. Her idea, however, is that well, Sridham interjects first. He says, what? In Vrindavan, he says, there are no trees. He's talking about the forest where they want to go. There are no trees that do not bear flowers, if not fruits. And the flower's fragrance is carried throughout the day by the forest's cool breezes, while at night, Vrindavan's aromatic jasmine blooms. Vrindavan's fruits drip with nectar as they fall from the trees, as if offering themselves to Brajapati's prince, while the birds perched on the trees' limbs create a symphony of melodious sounds to which herds of various colored deer dance. I swear, going there, one never thinks of returning. Now, that wasn't the best thing to say to Yashoda. But his feeling, this is his feeling. And every day, I tell you this, every day in the forest, when these boys go out, they all sit at one point and make a pact, you're never going home. But as the sun starts to set and the Vatsalya Bhav starts to become very intense in Vrindavan, and the separation is penetrating Krishna's heart, they head back every day. Every day they pledge never to go back, and every day they go back. Right? So, Yasoda's arguing with Krishna, right? I make a comment here. As if Krishna was the prince Siddhartha, the Buddha. You know the story of the prince Buddha? Yasoda Rani desired to keep her son within the confines of her cowherd palace and curtail even his calf herding, lest he opt, as now seemed ever more likely, for a life in the forest. The story of Siddhartha Buddha, of course, is that as a child, as a boy, his parents decided not to let him go outside of the palace walls, because if he went outside of the palace walls, he'd see things about life that were disconcerting, and they didn't know how it would affect him. But while they weren't watching, somehow he got out. This is the Buddha, right? And as he went along, he saw four things, right? He saw a person die. He saw a dead person being taken on a funeral. He said, "What's that?" And then his uh, horseman said, "That's death." And he said, "What? How's that work?" He said, "That's it. Everybody has to undergo that." So Buddha, he's very smart, you see. He thought, His parents didn't want to know about birth or death. Next thing he saw was birth. And he saw, "What's that? Looks painful." Said, "Oh, my dear prince, that's birth. Everybody has to undergo that. It's so traumatic that you forget about it." Right? So many months in the womb and coming out and so forth. And you're helpless in a world where your existence seems to be threatened and so forth. So he took note of that. Went further, he saw a diseased person, a leper. So what's that? That's disease, my dear prince. Everybody has to experience some measure of disease. So birth, death, disease, and then he saw an old person, old, difficult to carry on, to work. The senses are not functioning properly, the limbs and so forth. What's that? And the carrier said, "That's old age." And everybody has to experience that. So the Buddha once saw death, birth, sickness, and old age. And he said, "That's it. I'm out of here." He never went back to the palace, never participated in the world, and the palace was worldly. And everybody would die there too, but they wanted to hide that from him. So once seeing these things, Krishna says, "Dukkha doshana darshanam." What does he say? Once seeing these things, understanding them, this is real knowledge. Once seeing these things, that's why he's Buddha. Buddha means very intelligent. Once seeing these things, he gave up the world, became the Buddha, sat down under a tree, didn't move, right? Went within. He went beyond death, beyond old age, beyond disease, like you can't do living in the palace, even though it might pretend, right? What is the most wonderful thing, according to the Mahabharata? What did Yudhisthira Maharaj say? Although everyone dies, everyone is living as if they never will. Fascinating. That is Vishnu Maya. We worship her. What is her power? Goodness, right? So, this is my comment here. I'll read it again and complete it. As if Krishna was Prince Siddhartha, Yashoda Rani desired to keep her son within the confines of her cowherd palace and curtail even his calf herding, lest he opt, as now seemed ever more likely, for a life in the forest as a cow herder. What would that lead to? Nirvana is nowhere. Buddha lived in the forest, right, under a tree. To go into nirvana, to go nowhere. It's rather negative from a theological point of view. But while Krishna had no interest in the Buddha's nirvana, he could not leave without near means without. He could not live without near the forest, Van, of Vrindavan. So Nirvana means without the forest, he could not live. What is that forest? That is Vrindavan. Oh, if only the Buddha, with all of his wisdom, had become a cowherd. Of course, he did. If you look at the Das Avatar progression, right? From Buddha on up to Krishna, the full face, the avatari appearing as an avatar. So Mother Yasoda argued with him further, and she said, "Look, we know it's your dharma and so forth, but the king, of the cowherds is your father. You don't need to be like the other boys in this regard and work. This is an example also of how the word Leela, Sanskrit word Leela, really in its full measure only applies to Braj, because it means to play. And only in Vrindavan is Krishna only playing. In Mathura and Dwarka, he has some obligation. He's establishing Dharma. He has some weapons too, a chakra and a mace, and so sometimes he shows 4 hands and so forth. Vrindavan, he's only playing. You could say, well, he also slayed some demons there. Not, how? By taking a deep breath, and Aga's choked, right? So it's effortlessly he does these things, right? And he only plays. Not only does he only play, but because he is the son of the king of the cowherds, if you're a son of a rich person, you have even more, your position is even greater. You don't have to do anything. And that's how they treat him. He doesn't have to do anything. He's a little bit pampered, if you will. So he's super playing, if you will, there. And of course, that's why we can understand he's the source of all forms of divinity, because, as I've often said, it takes power to play. If you want to play, you're all here playing, but you had to have some power to come here. You either had to have gas in your car or electricity in your battery or money for a plane fare, time off from work. Of course, it happens to be a Saturday, so we're lucky. But the point is, these are all instances of power, right? You want to take a vacation, you have to have some power, some money in the bank, or vacation, built into your occupation. So it takes power to play. So therefore, he who is only playing, that is Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. He is the source of all avatars. He has nothing to accomplish, only playing. Leela Madhurya. That is his, right? That is who he is. Leela Madhurya Dasi Vijay. Nice to have you here. Nice to see you. Yes, so Mother Yasoda makes the argument like this, but Krishna says, Mother, if the boy is a son of a Brahmin from a wealthy family, does the Brahmin boy get someone else to chant the Gayatri and perform the Brahmin's duties? Oh, this is powerful. Mother Yasoda is seeing the virtue of his boyhood. When your child starts to speak like an adult, it's like, that's just a moment. It's very oh, did you hear what he said? He said, oh, he was so smart. So he's charming her. And she's thinking, oh, my son, and he's so religious. He really has a religious, disposition. And so she's taken back a little bit, but then she recoils. Wait, hold on here, right? And so she'll say, this not without the blessing of the elder brother, who's not present at the moment. So Balaram is the older brother, right? 8 days older. But his composition, his spiritual, emotional composition, his bhava is called Sankul Bhav. Sankul Bhav is a combination of bhavas in which one is prominent, by which that devotee is defined. So Balaram is defined by his Sakya Bhav. He's the best friend of Krishna. But his Sakya Bhav is bundled with some Vatsalya and some Dasya. So that we can find instances in the Bhagavatam where this Dasya expresses itself, or where the Vatsalya expresses itself. Outside of Vrindavan, as Mahasankarshan, Mool Sankarshan, I should say, then his Dasya will be more prominent. As he goes in other Leelas, wherever Lakshmi and Narayan are in any of Narayan's forms, it said in love, there's a crowd, but Ananta is always there, right? With them, serving, assisting. But in Braj, in particular, then this Sakya is prominent. This is the full face of Balaram, right? This is the face of Balaram that we see through the lens of the Goswamis. Yeah, he has a romantic life too, but that is incidental. Balaram's romantic life is Maryada. It's not even Rag. It's incidental. Focus of the Balaram, the lens of the Goswamis that they've given us in their commentary and Bhagavatam and so forth. This is Sakya Rasa is what he's really about. But this Vatsalya is fostered on him by Mother Yasoda. You can almost say that he's got this bhav because she keeps putting it on him. You're the older brother. You're the older brother. You have to take care of your younger brother. You have to take care of him. Hmm? So anyway, he comes into the scene, right? Baladev, like a like a white elephant, coming in. The whole world is shaking. Balaram comes in. So everyone goes silent, and Rohini appears, and Balaram intuits what's going on, and then he starts to toot his horn, if you will, which is something that is relative to the Puganda Lila. One feature of the Puganda Lila is that at this time, when Krishna becomes a cowherd and enters into boyhood, the Leelas of Balaram in the Braj start to become prominent. There's a slaying of Dhanakasur. There's a slaying of Pralambasur. Let's take Dhanakasur, for example. Comes in this chapter, 15th chapter of the 10th canto, right? The boys, they say Ram Ram Mahabaho. There are some fruits, tal fruits. We can smell the sweet fragrance, but they're being protected by some demons. And you're supposed to be a big guy, big long arms. You're supposed to be the protector. You told Mother Yasoda you would be you were the protector. You tried to convince. This is what he does at this point. He says, "No one could possibly harm my brother in my presence. I am, the what do they have? The whoop and the wharf and the weft and the what, which is what the Bhagavatam says later in this chapter. Describes Balaram like this. The whole, so he gives some tattva in the context of his bhav, and of course, the fact of the matter is at this point he hasn't shown that. That hasn't shown up. So when they get out now, as they will shortly, into the forest, then this Dhanakasur Surlila in the 15th chapter starts to come on, and the boys challenge Balaram. Like Mother Yasoda said, you were pretty strong and stuff like that, and you were saying the same thing, but we haven't seen that from you. Now here's an instance. Why don't you show us your strength? So they're pinching his ego like this, right? It's a beautiful story, and ultimately, of course, he takes them on. That's another chapter. I made a chapter out of that too in Circle of Friends. So anyway, Yasoda's now Balaram's also on the side. So her case is getting weaker and weaker at this point. And then she finally comes up with the last straw, and she says, but how can we proceed with such an important event without the blessings of Nandaraj, father of us all, father of all the cowherds, and all the gopas, all the gopis. Nanda Baba ki jai. And in comes Nanda Baba, right, from the cowshed with his salt and pepper beard, and in the morning sun, his complexion is somewhere between like the pink of a inside of a conch shell and a little more darker colored sandalwood paste. Very nicely attired, wearing fragrant sandalwood shoes. It's a festival just to see him. And as he approaches, he comes into the room, he says, what does he say? He says, may Krishna bless you. And all the boys go, oh, what are you talking about? Did you hear that? May Krishna bless us. So Nanda Maharaj realizes, he says, oh, you don't know yet what is the virtue of naming your son after God, which I have done. You don't know. I was referring to God. May God bless you. Oh, God bless you for thinking like that. Huh? This is Nanda Maharaj. Nanda Maharaj is a treasure chest of Puranic lore, stories, and their implications and so forth. In the evening, in the Apricot Leela, these boys, after dinner, they'll sit around the fire with Nanda Maharaj, and he'll start to tell stories, right? And he is their ideal. He is the full face of the cowherd. He's the king of the cowards. This is who they are. They're cowherd boys that want to become cowards. And he's just a reservoir of good qualities and stories. The father of all. They take one boy on a lap, put him on his lap, any boy, any night, two boys, one on each leg, right? And tell Puranic stories. Oh, and as I've commented, there should be Ananda Purana, glory of Nanda Maharaj, right? That's, so you should think like this. Let Nanda Maharaj be my father. Let Yashoda be my mother. It's said that by Gyan, you can do away with all your aprarabdha karma. That karma that's waiting to get its satisfaction. You've taken and you owe, and that karma is there to waiting to arrest you. Now you have prarabdha karma that's already manifest. That's another thing. But by Gyan, which is the antithesis of avidya, ignorance, out of which karma arises, you can do away with all that aprarabdha karma. But what are you going to do with your prarabdha karma? You can't change that, right? Can you change who your father and mother are? Yes, by bhakti. That is the point. Therefore, it said that bhakti has the power to do away with one's prarabdha karma. Rather than having to live it out, like the Jivan Mukta and Gyan, and watch it pass without, like a Ramana Maharshi or something, I don't know, like that. Bhakti has more power than Gyan. In fact, bhakti is the end of knowledge, right? To love someone is to know someone. You cannot know someone by any other means more by the head than you can by the heart. It said, if you love someone, they'll tell you all the secrets. Is it true? It is. No love is what does Krishna say in the Gita? Amalini? Raja Vidya? Raja Guyam. What is the king of knowledge? What is the conclusion? What does he say? He says at the beginning of the 9th chapter, now Arjuna, I'm going to tell you what is the king of knowledge, the secret of secrets. What is it? We have to go to the end of the chapter. If you know it, say it with me. Man mana baba madbhakto adyaji mamnamaskuru. Pratijani priyosi me. He says, love me, think of me. Pay pranam to me, do bhakti. That is the end of knowledge. That's the end of knowing. To love him is to know him. Amongst Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's disciples, we could say, his followers, nobody flatters Krishna more than us. We say very flattering things about him, so we must know him better. We must know him better. Our commentaries must be accurate. He is Swayam Bhagavan. Krishna Stu Bhagavan Swayam. It's a fact, right? So where were we? So what? So in the narrative. So Nanda Maharaj, he says, oh, you don't know the virtues of naming your son after God. So now all the cowboy boys, they were like joking, going, what is he talking about? Krishna going to bless us. You know, we may like him, but come on, right? He's just one of us. So then, Nanda, now there's a teachable moment has been created by Nanda Maharaj, and they're all ears to hear another story from the Puranas from Nanda Maharaj. So he tells the story. What story is he going to tell? Ajamil, who named his son Narayana. You can imagine they're hearing this for the first time from Nanda Maharaj, commenting on the Bhagavatam, 6th canto, famous Puranic story. And after that, after they hear, if he concludes the story, then all the cowards stand up. Jai Krishna, Jai Ram, Jai Hari, and do performing Sankirtan. It's a huge celebration, huge celebration. And then as it finally settles down, then what's happening, what he's entered into, the circumstances here come to the fore again, right? And so Yasoda Mai says, what say you? This is what's going on. Now, as I said, his head has already been turned to the virtues of allowing his son to be a cowherd boy. So she's unaware of this. So then he takes Krishna on his lap. And he says, you think you want to be a cowherd boy? He says, yes. And don't worry, because Ram will protect me. You have nothing to worry. So Nanda Maharaj gives in, but not today. We have to find an auspicious day. Now, I told you at the beginning that the Bhagavatam implies that this Boganda is going to be herding cows. That means Gopastami. Commentators like Sanatana Prabhu, they quotes from maybe Vishnu Purana, verse that says, as I mentioned earlier, on the 8th day of the waxing moon in the month of Kartik, this is Gopastami. So how did that happen? How did that happen to become the day? What day will it be? Because not necessarily today. So let's call it Jyotish. We got to bring the local astrologer. And there he is suddenly. Oh, look, there he is. Come in. Come in. So he comes in old and very like living in heaven. His head's in heaven, and he's not really aware of what's going on around him that much as his physician. And he's Sarvagya, so he knows everything. He's an astrologer. He can predict the future and so forth. So the Mountain Maharaj says, Sarvagya, please be seated. Some worship of the Brahmin, and he's pretty much impervious to it because I said his head is somewhere else. And Nanda Maharaj says, we'd like you to do the chart of Krishna and tell us what is an auspicious day for him to begin cowherding. So Sarvagya, he says, oh, you want to know what is the right day for your son's marriage, right? No. No. We want to know when is the right day for his the auspicious day for him to begin cowherding. And he can't seem to hear what the Nanda Maharaj is saying. And then Nanda Maharaj realized, oh, he's almost deaf. What to do? So the cowherd boys come up, 2 or 3 on each ear, and they shout into his head, what is the auspicious day in his chart that he can become a cowherder? He says, oh, you want to know what day the older brother's marriage will be? All right. So, this is now the boys are concerned. There's a problem here. We're ready to go right now, and now, but last minute here, there's an obstacle. How are we going to get around this? So again, Balaram yells in his ear, like, I don't want to get married, by the way. That's the spirit behind it. That's like not really on my mind. It may happen, whatever, but this is my thing here to be a cowherder with Krishna. So he yells in his ear, and he can be pretty loud. So he gets through, and so he says, "Oh, well, well, I won't read it. What is that? But basically, he says, if I look at the chart, and he goes through the details and so forth and so on, I've written them out. So he says, and this is the day." Now, what a celebration amongst the boys, and so now it has to give in entirely. But then he goes on, Yotish, and he brings Krishna a little closer. And he says, and one other thing I want to tell you, not only is this auspicious day to begin your dharma, your life as a cowherd boy, but it's on this day you will meet the lady of your life. And Krishna's heart stops. What did he say? And only Subal can understand what's happened. Only Subal, who's empathetic and sympathetic to Krishna's romantic life as a Narmasaka, right? And so now the adventure starts here, right? So they're going to proceed, right? Let's see. Maybe we have a section we can read here. Of course, now the festival starts. The drummers are coming, and the buglers, and the prasadam is being distributed, and so on and so forth. And I'll read this one section. Then he spoke so softly into Hari's right ear. Above all, on this journey today, you, with a complexion bearing the resemblance of the effulgence of a dark sapphire, Nilamani, will also glimpse the brightest, Ujjwal, form of the goddess who will become the lady of your life. Just repeating this is an important point. The beauty of all the women in all the worlds combined, earthly, heavenly, and even that of the great goddess of good fortune herself, cannot compare even to the reflection of the rays emanating from her toenails. This is what he tells Krishna. It's a lot to take in for a boy, right? Mm. Krishna, blushing, his heart beating rapidly, replied, "What did you say?" As the cowards miraculously celebrated Sarbagya's response to the king, only Subal heard the heartbeat, the beat of his heart, muffled by the closure of his lotus eyes, and gave him some support, right? So the festivities will begin and so forth, and now Krishna is going to proceed with his friends, cow herding, right? But the first problem is that if you know cows, they're not going to follow you like a dog and say, "Come on, come on." You have to be behind them to herd them, right? So Krishna goes behind the cows to herd them, but they won't move because Krishna's behind them. So then he goes in front of them. But where he goes in, he turns around. So eventually, and they start going in circles. Start going in circles. And then Krishna says, "All right, here's what to do here. I'll be in front of them, but I'll walk backwards." So he walks backwards and gradually starts to be surrounded by them. And then they're all happy and they're moving forward, and he slips to the back. And they cows, they have very big eyes. Their vision is much broader than ours. So they can see you when you're back over here. So they could see us move. They're assured, he's behind us. This is the first they're getting used to this, right? On this day, you should know too, previously, before all this discussion and all these events transpired, on that day, none of the cows would let down any milk unless Krishna came to the barn. This is a sign for Nanda Mars. Something going on. There's something special. So anyway, to proceed. Now they're out into the forest. And I'll draw for a moment on Devaki Nandan's Nataka, his drama from the 18th century. It comes in the line of Sridham Saka, Sundarananda, in his Gaur-lila, Sadhaka Deha, a line of Sakyarasa. This is a Sanskrit drama. And it's in the same line as Nayanananda Thakur, who wrote Prema Bhakti Rasarnava. And he's writing this about Gopastami drama. And in the context of writing, there's realization and feeling and so forth. And the famous story of Gita Govinda. Jayadev wrote Gita Govinda. And at a certain point while writing Gita Govinda, he was thinking about the comments of Krishna, the statement of Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna said that whatever my devotee lacks, I preserve. Whatever he doesn't have, I carry that. I bring that to him. And Jayadev thought, well, that's not right. I mean, Krishna will get it done. He's not going to carry it personally. Bring them if they're hungry. He's not going to bring them food personally. He'll get it done. He'll protect his devotees. That's what he means. So he crossed off the word. Thought this is an interpolation. Krishna couldn't have said this. And he wrote, instead of aham, he wrote karoti aham. I get it done. I make some arrangement. Not that Krishna's going to personally come and bring food to his devotee if he's hungry, right? I mean, he's Krishna. He's God. Then he went off to the market to beg vegetables and fruits to bring home for his wife to cook. And meanwhile, the young boy appeared at the door a little bit later, bearing a huge basket of fruits and vegetables, and said, "My dear lady, a man, your husband, gave me these to bring to you so that you could cook." But he had a little scratch on his head. He was so charming. So she said, "You're so beautiful. What's that? What happened to your head?" He said, "Well, I had a little scuffle with your husband and he hit me." "How could he do that? Please, you come in." Then she began to cook and prepare and so forth. Then the husband came back, Jayadev. He came back and he said, "Why are you cooking? And where did you get the vegetables?" She said, "That boy you sent brought all the vegetables. Why did you have a scuffle with him? Why did you scratch his head like that? Then he scratched his head. What what the heck? What are you talking about, right? He went into his quarters. He looked down. He was meditating on this verse the whole time. He looked down on the verse, and Karomi was crossed off, and Bahami was written back in. And they could understand. Krishna came. And he does get it done. He just did it. He just brought the vegetables personally, if you're really a devotee. So we have a ways to go. What it means to become a devotee. We're generously called as such by real devotees, and we want to attach ourselves to them, right? To their devotees and saris and so forth, right? So the point here is what? Devakinandan is writing this drama, and Krishna is now proceeding in the forest, right? With the cows and cowherd boys. And Sridham, through his pen, says, Krishna, I'd like to make a request of you, if you would please entertain it. My mother gave me permission, as you know, to go cowherding, but I told her that if you let me go, I'll bring Krishna, because we're going to go into the forest. We'll come to your place and visit. And so that was part of my, my way of getting her blessing and so forth. So I wonder if you would please be kind enough to turn in the direction, and let's take all the cows and cowherd boys and to Vrishabhanupur and and spend a little time there. And Krishna says, don't speak like that to me. Don't ask me, please. Don't show any reverence to me. It has no place in this cowherding Leela. We're equals. You and I are friends. Whatever you want, I want. Let us go. Let it be done. The point is that Devakinanda is writing this, and he had a little reverence, and through his heart, Krishna spoke to him. There's no reverence in Sakyarasa. Leave it behind. Vishramba. This is what it means. It means where pranay, where there is reason, justification for showing reverence and regard, there is none. This is pranay. This is Sakyarasa. So beautiful section of that text. And then they proceed. And then Sudam says, well, look, let's secure Baladev on this to get him on board. And this is how we'll do it. We'll promise him. Sudam is the nephew of Vrishabhanu, so the cousin of Sridham, who's the brother of Radharani. See, this is a Leela of boys and girls who all know one another. Krishna has all these friends, and all their sisters are in love with him. And this is a romantic comedy amongst adolescents. This is what it is in transcendence. Therefore, Hasya is very prominent. Hasya is very prominent. Prominent in Madhu Mangal. Baladev presides over Hasya Rasa. The fifth note of the flute is in Hasya Rasa also, mixed with Madhurya. So anyway, what's the plan to get Balaram on board? That not that it would be hard, but Sudam promises, if you come, my mother or my aunt, she will provide some madhavi, some intoxicating beverage that we have a penchant for. So Balaram's all on board, right? So they go to the house, and of course there's a beautiful description of Vrishabhanupur and what it's like and so forth. And then Radha, of course, in the room looking through there's little air holes in the walls, like for bringing in the breeze. Looking through the wall, and she sees Gopal Krishna, Gopal Krishna, and her heart is beating, and her manjaris are assisting her there, and Krishna's approaching with all his friends, with her brother and her cousins and so forth. They arrive, and the mothers perform an artik for all the cowherd boys at once, bring them into the house, right, for lunch. Balaram is given a big bowl of madhvi. He drinks it right down like that. So that his excuse is, I'm older than you, so I have to drink it all because you might take some. You're not old enough to drink this, he tells Krishna. Krishna says, well, that would be the case, but don't give him another bowl, whatever you do. So on with the meal, bring the meal. But so there's a lot of people in this room now, like millions of cowherd boys. The place is swollen. It's just swollen in Sakyabal, the house of of Kirtida. And she says, but bring my daughter, let her come and see all the boys and so forth. So Radharani's maidservants go to bring her, and she's, I don't want to go. What if he attacks me? Or something right in public, or how I will feel, and it will all come out in the public. And so Rupa Manjari has to convince her, don't worry, we'll all surround you, protect you, and so forth. And you have to come out. So she comes into the public, and then Subal introduces Krishna. This is or Sridham. This is Kirtida's daughter, my younger sister. And of course, Subal says, and that is the love of your life for sure. Oh my God, just see her. What are her qualities and so forth. And then Krishna starts to faint, right? And so Sudam thinks, oh, he's fainting because it's so hot in here. So many people in here. It's hot. Subal knows what's going on. He says, no, step back and let me get someone to fan him. And so he pulls Rupa Manjari. Can you do some fanning of Krishna here? Like this. And she brings him, saves him from passing out, if you will. And then Balaram's horn sounds and it's over, and they go out again to herd the cows. And the day of Gopastami is completed. Shri Gopastami ki jai. Gopastami Mahotsav ki jai. Radha Govinda ki jai. Ram Govinda ki jai. Sriman Mahaprabhu ki jai. Shri Nityananda Ram ki jai. Gauri Vaishnava Guru Parampara ki jai. Bhakti Vinod Paribar ki jai. Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Gaur Premanande. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhuveva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnavibinda ki jai. Gaur Premanande.